All right, welcome in. Time to preview what I think is the marquee matchup of this showdown between the San Francisco 49ers and the Green Bay Packers. And that is this hard charging, surging Green Bay offense against the 49ers defense that has shown that it can be elite with rest. When the 49ers haven't been that well rested, that's when this defense has shown some cracks, but they've got so much talent. And if we look at the data, we look at the progression of this season, we've seen a defense that has been elite to open the year and a defense that was elite since the bye week. About three games past the bye week there in week 9, the 49ers just put the clamp down on their opponents. Well, guess what? They're coming off another bye week. It's probably a good thing for the 49ers because they're facing a Green Bay Packers offense that ever since the young quarterback, the 25-year-old Jordan Love, has found his stride, this Packers offense has been really damn good. The 49ers offense this year has been historically good in many ways. They became the first team with I think 3 1,000-yard players. No, 4 1,000-yard players when you include Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and Brandon Ayuk. Obviously, Brock Purdy playing MVP caliber football. The expected points added per play, head and shoulders above every other team in the NFL. But look at this. Week 9, that's the delineating point for me and for Jordan Love and the Packers, because that's when they started turning things around. Green Bay is 8-3 since week 9. The Packers have been the second best offense in football. Weeks 1 through 8, the Packers were below average. It wasn't good. But they've turned it around, and this is what you see. The Packers coming in as the number 2 offense in football over the back half of the season. So that just sets up a tantalizing matchup with a 49ers defense that has been maligned at times this year, but they're still a top 5 unit. And I'm going to put this up on the screen for everybody to see. You want the opposing dots here to be lower. The horizontal line, the bolded line right across the middle that I'm hovering over with my cursor, that's the 50th percentile. So this is the season progressing from left to right. You want to keep your opponents under the 50th percentile. You want to keep them under average efficiency against you. This is what I'm talking about. The 49ers came out on fire defensively. Pittsburgh was under the 10th percentile. That's a 9th percentile performance. The Rams in week 2, 26th percentile. The Giants in week 3, 17th percentile. Then the Cardinals were a little bit better. I remember that game with Josh Dobbs at Levi Stadium. That was the game where Brock Purdy was perfect, though. I think it was literally a perfect quarterback rating for Brock Purdy. So Josh Dobbs was 65th percentile, and this Cardinals offense against the 49ers defense. But then you had Dallas, a 5th percentile performance. PJ Walker wasn't very good against the 49ers, but they lost that game in week 6. Obviously, it was a bad offensive game for them. But the Browns were able to run the football a little bit. And that was the sign of trouble to come, because then you had 86th and 94th percentile games for Kirk Cousins and Joe Burrow against the 49ers. And this is the point where it was clear they were very tired, where Kyle Shanahan even was talking about the 49ers looking slow and looking tired. Well, guess what happened after that? You could see there's a gap between 8 and 10 down here. 49ers had a bye week. Then they held Trevor Lawrence to 10th percentile, Baker Mayfield to 28th percentile, Geno Smith to 9th percentile. Jalen Hurts did a little bit better than average against the 49ers, but didn't matter. They blew the Eagles out. The defense started slipping a little bit compared to what it was before the bye week. And then obviously Lamar Jackson had a nice game against the 49ers. But the point is that the best performances here are clustered right after the 49ers have had some extended rest. And they do have some extended rest as they enter this game against Green Bay. That's why the 1 seed was so important. But anyway, we're here to discuss the Packers, and we're here to discuss Jordan Love, who has been sensational. Again, I say since week 9, because that's when Green Bay turned it around. You want to be further to the right and further up on this chart. Look where Jordan Love is. We talk about Brock Purdy being awesome this season. Well, Purdy's at the top of all these charts, but Jordan Love joins him since week 9 as the second most accurate quarterback in football and the second most efficient quarterback in football. Look what I wrote down there at the bottom of the screen. If you watch what Jordan Love did against Dallas, and maybe we'll take a look at some of the tape here a little bit later this week, but I'm sure most of you watched the game against the Cowboys. It was a near perfect quarterback rating. There were a lot of nice throws downfield, but Dallas was very aggressive defensively, as they always are against the Packers. They're forcing Jordan Love to backtrack in the pocket. And I mean, there were plays in that game, and there were touchdown throws in that game where Jordan Love was on his back foot, contorted his body, was moving away from a rush that was truly pressuring him, and he was still able to get off an accurate throw to the middle of the field, which to me is really, really impressive. Some people might think it's risky, but over the, I think, it's been 21 touchdowns versus 1 interception over his last 22 touchdown or INT throws. So obviously, even though it might be by the book risky to throw over the middle of the field off your back foot, Jordan Love is taking calculated risks. He's been impressive as hell. We've seen a 25-year-old quarterback grow up right in front of our eyes. In fact, it's, happened in the way that you probably would expect if you were charting this out from afar. This is Love's first full-time starting year, right? Aaron Rodgers was the Green Bay quarterback up through last season. Then Rodgers was traded to the Jets. And now you have Jordan Love executing the system really well. But not just that, you have him delivering off platform. And that's what makes him special. You have to be more than just somebody who executes the system to be as efficient as Purdy and Love have been this year. They are outliers versus the rest of the league, and that's what makes this matchup so damn compelling. You know what? I even wrote a piece on this matchup the other day. I got to get that one up on the screen. I totally forgot. Been so much going on this week. Obviously, the big John Lynch piece came out today. We're going to take a look at that one in a little bit. I could even throw everything on the screen right now while we're here. But I want to open up the Brock Purdy, Jordan Love piece because this is the Lynch piece from today. How Stanford professor helped lay the foundation for this 49ers era. Talk to Burke Robinson, who's an instructor at Stanford. The art and science of decision making. John Lynch took his class in 2014, and then he brought Burke Robinson in to build the 49ers vision statement. This is one of the, I would hope, one of the most insightful behind the scenes looks you'll get at how the 49ers built the juggernaut they currently have. Anyway, that's for another time, though. I'm going to get one more open here for you right now. We're going to take a look at the Jordan Love Brock Purdy comparison, because what Love has done this year to put himself in the same breath as Brock Purdy in the efficiency department, to me, is truly, truly impressive. Here it is. And up onto the screen we go. Those are your two quarterbacks. It's going to be a nice uniform matchup on Saturday night. But with the way that this season has broken, we can start talking about the young Favre matchups of the 1990s between the 49ers and the Packers. In the 2010s, we had Kaepernick against Aaron Rodgers. We've had electrifying quarterback talent and play on both sides of this rivalry for quite some time. This is the new generation. And we know that Purdy can throw off platform. We know Purdy can run around. He's really quick. He's really elusive back there. But one thing that we've really seen and we saw against the Cowboys is Jordan Love being able to deliver strikes even when he's under duress. And so what I wrote on the bottom of the screen was it's a DB first game for the 49ers, because even if your defensive line is rested and is doing well against the good Packers offensive line, even if they're pressuring Jordan Love at a high rate, he can still beat you if you don't have the back end covered appropriately. So the 49ers absolutely must deliver on the back end. I think that this is a secondary rooted game for the 49ers. I think the rush has to fuel the coverage almost more than the coverage fuels the rush. You always need a semblance of both, but some games it's going to be dictated that you need a little bit more of the rush, and some games you're going to need the coverage to lead the way. I think what we're looking at in this game against Green Bay, because they've got a really deep arsenal of skill position weapons, and because Aaron Rodgers, I misspoke, because Jordan Love can deliver even when he's pressured. I think the 49ers need to make sure that the coverage is airtight or as good as possible throughout the duration of the play. And that obviously is easier said than done. The way that this rivalry has gone in the playoff games that the 49ers have dominated since 2019 is it's been rush over coverage for the 49ers in 2019. I mean, they just overwhelmed the Packers and a good offensive line with D Ford and Nick Bosa and that gold rush. But in 2021, the 49ers pass rush wasn't as good. And the Packers actually beat them in week 3. But then when the 49ers won in the postseason, it was a matter of good coverage for San Francisco, locking down the back end and Devontae Adams and all those weapons long enough for the front end to be able to get to Aaron Rodgers consistently in the snow game. Remember, Dante Johnson actually started that game at cornerback for the 49ers. It was a heroic effort, pinch hit appearance for Dante Johnson in a season that featured a lot of clutch pinch hit appearances for the 49ers. But it was really maybe even the beginning of a transition that we saw from the 49ers defense. Their secondary was able to really deliver much more of the load than it had been in years prior. Well, I look at this game against the Packers. The 49ers have a lot better talent in the secondary than they did in 2021. You're starting Charvarius Ward and Deommodore Lenoir on the outside. When I look at the talent that they have and I look at the offensive line that Green Bay has, and it's a good offensive line, I've got something for you on that level. It's the number 2 pass block win rate in the NFL. When you look at all that, I just see a dynamic that's going to force the 49ers to cover for quite some time against the Packers. And it's not going to be easy to cover for a long time against the Green Bay Packers. Why is that? Because the Green Bay Packers are a very, very deep team amongst their offensive weapons. This is not just a team that's going to sit there and throw to one guy. Back in the day, it was Aaron Rodgers, and he had his favorite, right? He had Devontae Adams. Neither of those two players are with the Packers. And Rodgers, of course, it was Aaron Rodgers. He spread the ball around, but Devontae Adams was the favorite. Now they're running much more of a Shanahan-esque system. It's Matt LaFleur who's the coach. LaFleur actually worked under Kyle Shanahan in Washington when Shanahan was the offensive coordinator there at the start of the last decade. LaFleur was his quarterbacks coach. And when you look at the system, it is predicated on balance. So you've got Aaron Jones, 4 straight 100-yard rushing games. You have depth and adaptability at the skill position weapons. That's a lot like a Shanahan offense. It's going to put a lot of focus on Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw for the 49ers. And then you have a quarterback who's orchestrating all of it by being able to take the handcuffs off of the offense by delivering off platform and delivering off schedule, but also by delivering on schedule, which is something that Nick Bosa even mentioned this week. He said that Aaron Rodgers would sometimes just be freelancing, but now they're running the system, and the system has so many weapons that it's reminiscent of what the 49ers are doing from the adaptability weapon perspective, where it's hard to cover them all. So the key to beat balance, or at least slow down balance as a defense, is to have discipline. And you have to be able to cut out the legs from underneath the Packers, and that is stop the run. You can't let Aaron Jones put you on your heels defensively if you're the 49ers. You have to stop the run, and that's where Eric Armstead's dominance of Green Bay comes in. Because Eric Armstead, his playoff games against the Packers have been awesome. In 2019, 4 pressures and a sack. In 2021, he had 4 pressures and 2 sacks. He might be the most impactful run defender in football along the defensive line. When you look in 2021, the 49ers had like the number 19 or 20 run defense by EPA per play before Eric Armstead moved to the defensive tackle position. Then he moved inside, and then they were the number 1 run defense by the end of the season. So he's been out since the Philadelphia game with the plantar fasciitis. But I talked to Eric Armstead in the locker room today. He said he feels great. He was a full participant at practice for the first time since December, and he's going to be a big, big piece of what the 49ers are trying to do against the Green Bay Packers on Saturday. Because, again, the Green Bay offensive line is legit. The Green Bay offensive line has run blocked well this year, and the pass protection is number 2 in pass block win rate. They don't have David Bakhtiari. He's hurt. But the Packers have been an O-line factory for years now. And at their best, the 49ers have overwhelmed the Packers offensive line. But when the 49ers haven't been at their best up front, the Packers offensive line has generally had their way with them. It's been kind of a either or situation. So it's going to be fascinating to see if the 49ers can leverage some of this extra rest, the return of Eric Armstead, the addition of Javon Hargrave, Chase Young. They don't have Cleveland Farrell against this Packers offense. Farrell's probably going to be the only player on the active roster it's going to miss this game with a knee injury. And Nick Bosa, you got to take that foursome plus the depth, and you have to win that battle up front. It's Rasheed Walker at left tackle and Zach Tom at right tackle. The tackles have been good for Green Bay this year, but I get the sense, talking to people in the 49ers locker room, talking to people around the team, that they think these tackles can be had. They think that there's potential wins for Chase Young and Nick Bosa. Josh Myers and John Runyon at center and right guard. That's probably the weak spot of this Green Bay offensive line, kind of like it's the weak spot of the 49ers offensive line. Elgton Jenkins, who's played all kinds of different positions for the Packers, he's at left guard. He's a damn good player. So left guard is really strong for Green Bay. Obviously, Bakhtiari used to play left tackle before he got hurt for this team, so they love that left side. But even without him, they've been able to run. They prefer running left because that's where Elgton Jenkins is. And the 49ers are going to have to shut that down with the Aaron Jones question. They're going to have to answer that question in a positive, affirmative way. Eric Armstead, though, is the one player along with Javon Hargrave. And if you go into the depth, maybe even Sebastian Joseph Day alongside Javon Kinlaw and Kevin Givens, those are the players that can expose where Green Bay's weakest up front, and that's at center and right guard. But we do talk about Green Bay's skill position weapons and just the adaptability and the depth of those pieces. And I mean, you go from somebody like Christian Watson, that's Trey Lance's former teammate at North Dakota State, who seems to have been hurt. A lot of hamstring injuries for Christian Watson throughout the year, but he has got burner speed. And if he's healthy, or at least healthy enough, that's a guy that can blow the top off the defense. You have Romeo Doubs, who had something like 5 or 6 catches for 187 yards against the Packers. Good-sized wide receiver, versatile receiver, runs really good routes. You've got Jaden Reed, who might be one of the better slots in football already. These are all first, second, or I think in the case of Christian Watson, third-year guys. They're all young, and they're all meshing with Jordan Love as this offense gets going. And then you got a pair of tight ends in Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave, who's Bill Musgrave's nephew. Bill Musgrave, NFL coach. He's been a offensive coordinator around the league, but also former 49ers backup quarterback from 1991 to 1994. Bill Musgrave was either the third or the fourth stringer. And Luke Musgrave, the rookie tight end, can really run. The Packers will run 2 tight end sets. They're going to use that to try to run the football effectively against the 49ers. That's the doorbell. Hopefully my roommate Joe is able to get it. I think he's on his way. Good. That might be the delivery guy. I don't think I ordered anything, though. So it's good. Anyway, 2 tight end sets for the Green Bay Packers. The 49ers may get a taste of their own medicine in that regard. And anytime that you have an offense that's as adaptable as Green Bay, that can run the 2 tight end sets, that can pose so many questions with Aaron Jones, that can deliver off platform with Jordan Love, that has a diversity of skill sets in the receiving room. Anytime that you have that, then that is going to put a big time onus on the opposing linebackers. The 49ers have to be able to deliver at the second level of this defense. We talk about the 49ers' biggest advantage against the Green Bay Packers being against Green Bay's linebackers and Quay Walker and Devondre Campbell, right? Well, that has to be the 49ers' strength against the Packers. Since these two teams are mirror images of each other in a way with their offensive scheme and with how well their quarterbacks are playing, that means that if you want to defend better than the other team, you've got to be better than a spot that the other team is weak at defensively. And the Packers are weak defensively at linebacker. The 49ers have to be strong defensively at linebacker. And we know that they have the best linebacking duo in the game with Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. So it's going to be absolutely massive for the 49ers at that middle level to keep the pressure on the Green Bay Packers. Fred Warner's going to have to cover. Dre Greenlaw's going to have to cover. They're going to have to run with Luke Musgrave, but perhaps most importantly, they're going to have to stay home and stay honest against potential play action fakes. They're going to have to make sure that the Green Bay balance does not put them on the heels the way that the Dallas defense found themselves on their heels last week. It's going to be a hell of a challenge for the 49ers, but I think that people are really looking forward to it. But Chase Young, stand up. They're going to need him. They're really going to need him because Chase is going to be taking more snaps this game with Cleveland Farrell out. And Farrell has set such a hard edge for the 49ers against the run. Number 26 run defense the 49ers are this year. It's been shaky. Green Bay can capitalize on that if Aaron Jones continues dominating. So to me, it's all about the rest for the 49ers. You have to go out there and you have to deliver fresh football the way that you've delivered when you've come off of a bye, when you had that rest this season. We have a couple more really good graphics here that show you where the Green Bay offense has been. These are team tiers over the final few weeks of the regular season. Look at the 49ers and the Packers. Defenses haven't been great. The Green Bay offense has definitely been up there with the 49ers. So that's it. Let's move this on to the 49ers Q&A. Ready for you guys and ready for your questions about everything, including the big piece today with John Lynch. I think we really delved into the 49ers secret sauce. We delved into the history here. So make sure you check that out. We'll try to put that into the description if Mike is available to do that right now. It's also on my Twitter, but it's definitely worth checking out The Athletic for this article. Was it after the Bengals game that the 49ers benched Oliver? Yes. That is when the defense started clicking. They fixed the secondary by moving Oliver to the bench because they weren't getting enough change of direction from him at that slot cornerback position. But also, they just got more juice in their pass rush. The bye week gave the 49ers a chance to circle the wagons, and they've had another chance to circle the wagons now since the end of the regular season. I think that any skill position players play better in good weather than in cold or the rain. That's why rain tends to slow down offenses. So we'll see what the conditions end up being on Saturday. That's awesome. They talked about me on Sirius XM, but they didn't remember my name. I don't think my name's that hard to remember. Lombardi. It's the same as the trophy. I think we got a lot of Packers fans watching this week too, so I think that they might like the name as well. I mean, the DVOA, which is defense adjusted value over average, which is going to take into account the strength of schedule, and a lot of people think that Green Bay's played an easier schedule. The DVOA tries to take that into account. The DVOA said that Green Bay had the number 6 offense by the end of this season. That included the struggles at the start of the season. Listen, every single game in the NFL is going to bring some challenges. These players are the best of the best. I wouldn't fixate too much on who's playing a hard schedule or who's playing an easy schedule. Just look at the results, look at the totality of the numbers. And I think it's clear that Green Bay's got a good offense and a bad defense. It splits into those two camps. The 49ers have a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense. That's why they're favored by 10. So if the 49ers play this to serve, they're going to win the football game. But you just have to play it out, and you have to make sure that it does play to serve. By the way, they put the saloon font with the red paint onto the field. Are people ready for this? I think it's time. I think it's time to get everybody really excited and show you the football field as it looks at Levi's Stadium right now. This is courtesy of Bree McDonald of the 49ers. Take a look at this. Red paint to go along with the saloon font, a 49ers playoff tradition. It does look nice. I mean, it definitely gives you that big game feel at Levi's Stadium, and that's what the 49ers are going for. And speaking of the Packers' relatively weak schedule toward the end of the season, that included a game against Carolina where they gave up, 30 points in that game. So I think that the weakness of the schedule says a little bit more, especially when you look at the results about the Packers defense, which I talked about in the preview yesterday. That defense has really struggled for this football team. That defense has not been good. Number 27 DVOA over the course of the season. And it's a situation where I think that's the 49ers' big comparative advantage in this game. Andre Thompson says it feels like Levi's is starting to feel like home, finally. Well, I mean, it took a little while, but once you host enough big playoff games in any venue, I think it's going to start to feel like home. Candlestick, I think, has hosted more playoff games than any stadium ever in NFL history. I think that's still the case. So Candlestick was always going to be hard to replace just because of the history and all the great big moments that happened in that stadium for the 49ers. Trent said today he's playing next year, but let me tell you guys, this is not the time to be talking about next year. And Trent's answer, I was there. Trent's answer to that question was definitely he kind of brushed it off. He didn't want to talk about it. He's going to make his decision after this season. Let me just put it that way for Trent Williams. I don't think that Trent Williams needs to be answering questions about whether or not he wants to play next year, because for a 35-year-old veteran, these are decisions that you make after you take inventory of your body, or your spiritual readiness to play football after this run is done. It's January 17th. The 49ers hope to be playing for about another month right now. So I think the whole Trent Williams thing, I would just pump the brakes. Let's wait to see the season end before we start judging his actual decision moving forward. Because these guys are put on the spot by a lot of these questions. You have to realize that. So that's the needed context in this scenario. What Green Bay wideout poses the biggest threat to the 49ers defense? I like all of them. And I didn't mention Dontavian Wicks a little bit earlier. There's Dontavian Wicks. There's Christian Watson with his speed. There's Romeo Doubs, who I think is a good-sized, versatile receiver. There's Jaden Reed, who's a really good slot. The totality of these receivers, plus the two tight ends with Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, that's the problem. It's the same answer as if you were asking this about the 49ers. Oh, which receiver makes you the most nervous? Could be anyone, because they got 5 really good eligibles. So it just depends. It's a pick your poison thing. Green Bay's got a mini version of that going on. So this is a big test for the 49ers defense. The interview with Brock and Steve was really good. Yeah, it was. Go check that out. Who do I have getting cut this week? I'm not sure, but the 49ers are going to have to cut somebody to make room on their roster for George Odom, who'll be presumably coming off of the injured reserve list. We will see how the two coaches match up in game management. Remember, Shanahan used to be LaFleur's boss. Shanahan's outcoached LaFleur over the years, but Shanahan, I think, has also generally had a better roster than Matt LaFleur. And I think he still does in this game. So we'll see how that game management goes based on the situation Saturday. It won't be Danny Gray who gets cut. He's not on the 53 right now. Danny Gray's on IR. He's not taking up any space. So it's going to be somebody who's taken up one of those 53-man spots. Danny Gray's season is over. His 3-week window to come off of injured reserve expired. They didn't activate him. His next chance to prove himself is going to be 2024 training camp. So Danny Gray is not one of the options. And I do believe that his contract will toll, yes. That means this year didn't count as far as an accrued year for Danny Gray because he didn't play this year. went on injured reserve after training camp, and now is not going to have a chance until the 2024 season. Only about 3 weeks of practice for Danny Gray over the course of the regular season. All right, everybody, thanks for joining. It's been fun. Make sure you check this out, how a Stanford professor helped lay the foundation for this 49ers era. Good times previewing this. We got a lot more content coming up the rest of this week. It's been a busy day, and we will talk to you all soon.